Welcome to the Astro Psyche. This is your weekly astrology forecast for April 1st through the 7th. And this week is about reassessing identity, independence, and self-esteem with Mercury retrograde and Venus in Aries. So we have a lot of themes this week in particular that are continuing to emphasize Aries. And we also have some energy that's involving Pisces and Venus, and particularly making a transition from Pisces to Aries. Then, of course, a Mercury retrograde begins this week. My name is Shawna McGrath. I'm a psychotherapist and astrologer, and I'm really excited to be able to share the astrology of this week with you from a psychological perspective. So let's start at the beginning. The beginning of this week, Monday, April 1st, we have Mercury's retrograde beginning. So this is when Mercury stations retrograde in Aries at 27 degrees of Aries. And so I really want to encourage you to contemplate and to feel into this Mercury retrograde period, which is about 3.5 weeks or so, to move into this with an intention of contemplation and introspection, and that this period, like all Mercury retrogrades, we typically have about 3 or 4 Mercury retrogrades throughout the year. And this is a time for us to reassess. It's a time of looking around, taking stock of things. Sort of, I think a Mercury retrograde has the stereotype of being disruptive or inconvenient because it is a time of taking a pause. And we're conditioned to want to continuously be productive and to be moving forward. In many ways, that is the westernized or even Americanized kind of way of being, is that we're going forward, we're doing things, and we are not stopping. But Mercury retrograde is reminding us of the natural cycles that do involve, like thinking of cycles as a circular pattern or a spiral where it loops back on itself continuously. And so it is this time, this period, which is, fairly, I think it's kind of like a mid long-term period, a couple of weeks can feel like a long time. It can feel like a short time. So it is this time of assessing things. And in particular, this Mercury retrograde occurs, there's a couple of themes to it. So a big part of it is that it happens in the sign of Aries. And so this retrograde will happen from 27 degrees of Aries backwards through the zodiac to 15 degrees of Aries. So Mercury stations retrograde Monday, April 1st, and then it stations direct. In other words, when the retrograde ends, it stations direct on Thursday, April 25th at 15 degrees of Aries. And so we're reassessing Aries themes, and especially for you, wherever Aries is in your birth chart, whatever house Aries is occupying, those areas of life are particularly up for contemplation or reassessment. And I want us to be very cautious of trying to be like, okay, I'm gonna reassess and I'm gonna figure it out. Like there's some sort of like riddle that you need to solve. And that might be the case. That might be, I don't know, maybe if that works for you, that's great. And I think that that can be another way of trying to be productive in a time when the point is not really about productivity. The point is about being with yourself, being with your life, and seeing what comes up organically. Like this is more about a being versus a doing kind of experience. And of course, life goes on. We need to do certain things and be productive. And we can create space for experience, for sitting with something to organically arise versus trying to figure it out. So yes, so this Mercury retrograde in Aries, Aries is about the self, the ego, the identity, the structure in your psyche that says, yes, this is me, I am that, I feel this way, I identify this way, this is how I identify. It's that organizing principle that we organize ourselves around, our identity. And Aries also has themes of assertiveness, being direct, being spontaneous, and acting from instinct or impulse, or even psychologically, the impulses that we have, the drives that we have to move forward and to do something, and how that works in our lives. How I think also this is a time of exploring and contemplating how connected or disconnected we feel to our instinctual self, to our impulses, and our relationship to our instincts and impulses, and that like intuitive action part of us. What is our relationship to being assertive, being direct? What is our relationship to prioritizing our individual needs within the context of moving through life? And I think also Aries can involve themes around self-esteem. I think it can also bring up themes around fear or hesitation. I think that there's this stereotypical idea of an Aries person being bold and fearless and courageous. And we always I think it's helpful to look at the inverse of that when we don't feel courageous, when we do have a lot of fear. And I think that Aries is about navigating our experience of fear and courage, and how and when we decide to act versus not, and why that may be. And how oftentimes we do decide to move forward in spite of fear. We sort of create a space for that fear and let it be without having it dictate that we move forward or not. I think another part of Aries, of course, is this desire to be an advocate, or to fight for something, to push back against something, to assert boundaries, to have a sense of like, this is my space, or even a protector kind of energy, where it's like you're wanting to protect on behalf of someone or something else. So all of these themes may come up. I think also at a biological level, Mercury retrograde in Aries is a symbol of the immune system and stress responses, like the body's inherent defensive system. And so all of these things may come up. I would say definitely watch if you are starting to feel more fatigue or more stress, and to notice what it is that your body is wanting you to do from your symptoms are information. Oftentimes, of course, see your doctor, etc., do all of the things that you need to do, and then also look at the feedback that you're getting from your physical body. Okay, other things. Yeah, so other things about this Mercury retrograde, and we're going to continue to talk about this over the coming weeks. But I do want to just note that this is happening with both, okay, yeah, a couple of things. So Chiron and the North Node are in Aries, so they are inherently a part of this Mercury retrograde. And then also this week, we'll talk about this more in a moment, Venus will move into Aries. And so Venus is a part of this whole situation as well. So we're talking about reassessing and contemplating and looking at, especially on top of the Aries themes, we're also thinking about the healing function, Chiron, and how we may want or need a sense of healing, what that looks like for us. Chiron can also bring up themes around self-sacrifice, when we make a sacrifice of our own vitality for another reason, or for another person. I guess it could be another reason. So I think like themes around self-sacrifice and how you manage your energy, your very precious time and energy and resources, that can also come up during this cycle. And then the North Node, so we're in eclipse season, right? So this Mercury retrograde is happening within the context of eclipse season, which is about dramatic changes happening in a very short period of time. So new things coming in very rapidly and some things falling out and being sort of transmuted very quickly as well. The North Node is a symbol of growth, opening, new things, especially things that maybe feel foreign to us or unfamiliar in some way. It's, I think, like a very practical example is learning a new skill that is very North Node. And so there's this inherent kind of vulnerability or awkwardness or not knowing. And it's important to hold space for this, to know that it's okay to not know. And it's okay to look for answers and ask questions and to remember that you're important and that what you need is important. And I'm saying that because we're talking about Chiron, self-sacrifice, Aries, the self. And so it's like your energy is important here. And how do you make space for yourself in this world? Now, Venus being into this equation involves themes of relationships, self-worth, self-esteem, our relationship to desire, aesthetics, beauty, sensuality, the things that we love and the things that we love to love, and how we connect with others. So these are all things that we're sort of going to be swimming in over the next couple of weeks. And this is not something that you need to figure out now, but just to sort of sit with it. And I think also notice where you're kind of already feeling like there's a potential for some of these themes to come up in your life. Okay. Other things that are happening this week is so before Venus moves into Aries, it will conjunct Neptune in Pisces this week. So this is the order of events. We have Venus making a conjunction to Neptune in Pisces. That's where Venus and Neptune appear to be at the same place in the zodiac. This is happening on Wednesday, the 3rd. And so the first chunk of the week, we have Venus in Pisces, Venus, Neptune. This is can sort of be like a sense of like being like fully submerged in like experience, can be like in confusion, illusion. It can be a time of great inspiration. but also sort of where you feel like you're in a mist or a fog, so to speak, especially when we're talking about relationships. And so I think the first part of the week, it's like we're sort of wrapping up this Venus in Pisces energy and getting this extra dose of Neptunian energy into relationships, which is about like not really being super clear. There might be a lot of feelings, but not really having a strong sense of clarity. And then Venus moves into Aries on Thursday, the 4th. And so Venus in Aries, in contrast to Venus in Pisces, there's a sense of boldness with Venus in Aries. And what else do I want to say here? I'm thinking about how in some ways we like Venus in Pisces because it's exalted there, which means that Venus has the ability to share the best of itself. So relationships sometimes go a little bit easier. There's more of a sense of flow and harmony. Whereas Venus in Aries is Venus in a more challenging position. It has less of its resources to give. Now, I think that can mean that maybe there's a little more of like a sharp edge around relationships, but I feel like the sense that I get with it, especially because we had Venus encountering Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. So it's kind of like, I feel like there's a little more challenges than we would normally think of when we have Venus in Pisces. Venus in Aries, there's more of a sense of leaning into our boldness in relationships, that we can, I think, like feel more of our passion and feel more of our excitement and feel more even energized as well, energized to connect with ourselves or with others in a way that opens up the capacity for being in relationship, for being brave in relationship, and for more fully experiencing and moving towards the things that we find gratifying and that give us a soothing, sensuous experience that we can delight in the senses in a way that maybe is more direct. If that makes sense. Yeah, I also want to say, I think that Venus in Aries amplifies the theme around experiences of self-esteem and self-worth, because Aries is about the self. It's about me, I, this, I am that. And Venus is also about our values, our sense of self-esteem, how we feel about how others feel about us. And so when Venus moves into Aries, there's more of like what do I want to say? Like a sensitivity to how do I feel about myself? How do others feel about me? How do I feel about that? How am I seen? These things can come up. And so I think that Mercury retrograde is a part of this whole process too, especially with Chrion and the North Node being there and the eclipses happening on this Aries Libra axis. So there's a potential for bringing some new awareness, bringing some healing. And I think it's a fantastic time to seek out any healing or therapeutic work that is especially intended for you to connect with yourself and for you to take care of yourself, connect with the parts of you that are inherently you, that are not performative or a persona or a mask. It's more like this is about getting into you and what that means for you. And that is always evolving. That's always changing. Let's see, what else do I want to say? Okay, so I'm gonna start shuffling the tarot cards, but I do want to mention just a couple of minor things. So when Venus moves into Aries, it will also make a minor aspect, a sextile to Pluto on Saturday. And so I really like this. I think this helps to facilitate the healing process. I think it helps to facilitate receiving answers or getting access to some hidden information or feelings that might be helpful to us. And that's essentially active from Thursday through the weekend. Another part of what's happening this week is that within the lunar cycle, we'll have the waning third quarter moon in Capricorn. This is happening on Monday the 1st. And so the third quarter moon is about getting closure on things, wrapping things up. Kind of about like making peace with what you've been working on, and then also preparing, like mentally, emotionally preparing for a new cycle to come. And the waning energy, of course, of the moon is about things being more internal, letting go, starting to draw the energy more inward. And then as a sort of preview for next week, we're going to talk about this more next week. But I want to share that, of course, we're having a total solar eclipse on Monday, the 8th of April, so next week. That's happening at 19 degrees of Aries. And we also want to keep in mind that within this eclipse season, we're thinking about this being while the sun is in Aries. So eclipse season essentially is Aries season at this point in time from about March 19th to April 19th. And so I think also as we're feeling into what's happening this week, we can think about the broader themes that came up from March 19th to now and what is happening for us. So that's sort of like a bit of the more broader context that we're in. And so the astrology of this week is within the eclipse season that began around March 19th. And then also, I want us to keep in mind too, so this is something that I was looking at. It's not exact this week, but we're moving into Mars in Pisces, making a conjunction to Saturn in Pisces. And this to me is a very dynamic transit. Mars is about taking action and being assertive. It's really about like moving towards something or maybe moving away from something. It is about movement and dynamic energy. And Saturn is about devotion, boundaries, structure, containment, safety, security, long-term goals, experience, learning through experience. And so when I see Mars Saturn, there's a couple of different things that might come up. There are themes around like really putting a lot of energy into something that we've been working on for a long period of time. And this can be very gratifying. It can also be a bit frustrating sometimes, depending on our experience, and I think also depending on our expectation. And so I think that's something also we're sort of swimming in, that we're moving into. And I know all of that is a lot. I encourage you to take what feels most resonant for you and what what jumps out at you the most. Okie dokie. So 4 cards came out today, which like rarely happens. So this is what we got. So first we have the Four of Pentacles. This is the Wild Unknown Tarot. So Four of Pentacles, and in this deck, the Pentacles are creating a sort of crossroads kind of symbol. This card tends to be about financial security, financial safety, and our relationship to that flow, or not feeling that flow of energy. So that's one of the main themes that's happening this week, is our focus around security and stability, especially in a more practical way. The second card is the Daughter of Cups. This is equivalent to the Page of Cups. I always see this card as an encouragement to be yourself, to honor your gifts, to connect with whatever it is that makes you weird, eclectic, creative. This is really about embracing your uniqueness and remembering that we need that, and that is a part of what makes you really beautiful. And in this deck, the image is of a little duckling that has like a little, what looks like a rainbow shadow. And I think sometimes when we don't have a clear sense of our uniqueness, or if it feels like extremely outside of the social norm, it can have us feeling like we're an ugly duckling or like we're an outcast in some way. And I think this is a card that encourages you to remember that there is beauty in the way that you are, even when it doesn't always feel that way. The next card is the Star card. And in this deck, there's a really big, beautiful star with rainbow watercolors on it. The star is an encouragement to look for the good, to look for the light, to stay optimistic. And it's like really, I'm thinking about, like using the stars as navigation points, how people that sailed used to do that and maybe still do that. I don't know. So there's something here that is celestial or otherworldly in nature that is a guiding force for you. And again, like there's something here also around following what feels uplifting to you. So you're gonna laugh. The last card, in contrast to that, is the Death card. And so I know this card can bring up a lot of like scary feelings. And so I want us to be thinking about this card as like a Pluto card. Like this is like a symbol of Pluto. And I know that you might be like, Shawna, is that even better? And I'm saying that because the Death card, like Pluto, is about transformation. It's about this process of the caterpillar eating lots of food and then going into its cocoon and then like turning into goo and sort of like melting, and then somehow it becomes a butterfly. There's this thing that happens where we go inside, we go into a cocoon, and something like really dramatic happens. There's sort of this can be sort of this dissolving, transfiguration, like things happen in a way where we are changed and we cannot go back to that old place because there has been a transformation. And so the death card is a symbol of this change, that there is something that is being transformed at a very deep and foundational level. And so when we're looking at all of these cards to sort of be like, okay, that's cool, Shawna, but like, what is that? What's that about? There, we began with the Four of Pentacles. And so we began around experiences of stability, and especially around, I mean, I think it can be around finances. I think it can also bring up themes of your feeling like you have a place in the world. And that can correspond to many different things, not just your financial situation. It can correspond to, do you feel like you have a place? Do you feel like you have an identity? Do you feel that you have a sense of community or family, whether that is what you were born into or your chosen family, your chosen community? Where are you? And there might be a feeling of like not really fitting in. And that you're kind of like, I'm thinking about this duck swimming, like in the fairy tale of the little duckling, or the ugly duckling, I think it's called. That little duckling goes on this journey. They're not just like sitting there hanging out. They go on this whole journey and they visit all these different places. Um, and then at some point they encounter the swans, because the little duckling is actually a swan. So I'm thinking about like, it's like there's this thing around security or maybe belonging. And so you're going on this journey and you're following guidance from something that has like a sense of celestialness or divinity, or you're following your sense of feeling about things. And then from that occurs a transformation. And I think this is really beautiful, because when we do this, like this is such a beautiful and brave journey. Like I'm thinking how this really brings us back to Aries, and how Aries is a symbol of the warrior. And there is this sense of bravery and self-determination in this. I hope that you found this helpful. I am wishing you a wonderful and most easeful week. Again, my name is Shawna McGrath. I am a psychotherapist and astrologer, and I offer depth-oriented psychotherapy as well as astrology sessions. If you want to find out more about me and my work, you can find me on my website, theastropsyche.com. And also, I so appreciate the comments or ratings or reviews that you leave whenever you listen to this weekly podcast. That always warms my heart. And then you're also making this podcast be more visible to people who might be looking for something like this. So I appreciate you sharing your energy here. I will see you soon. Bye.